How are you tonight? Doing good? Can take more? Ready to take more? Okay. As you know that we're going through a series in the history of the church history, and we covered the first century of Christianity in Egypt and some of the second century by Abu Paul. And today I'm going to talk to you about something, not specifically about a season in the church, the second or the third century, but something very important happened between the second, the third, and the fourth century, which impacted the Coptic church greatly, and even, the impact is still there until now, okay? And I hope you're excited about that, and I hope that you get to read about that, because it's really something wonderful. So I'm going to talk to you about monasticism in the Coptic church, okay? As you know, that our Coptic church is the founder of monasticism, because the first monk ever was Saint Anthony. He was an Upper Egypt young man. In the age of 18, he's born 250. So we're talking about the third century and the fourth. Third and fourth, they are the peak of monasticism in the Coptic church. Started by Saint Anthony in year 250. He was 18 years old when both of his parents passed away. Went to church, you know the story. He heard the gospel saying, if you want to be perfect, go sell what you have, give to the poor, and come and follow me. So the man did exactly the same. He had an inheritance. He sold everything, gave to the poor. He had one sister. He put her like in a house for nuns, or they call it like house for virgins. I'm going to come later on and talk about that. And then he went on a unique and a pioneer journey. Started off confused, didn't know where to go. He was around the city, and then he got a message by God to go a little bit into the desert, and over there, this man went through a trip from hell to heaven. This man saw the devils more than anyone else. This man was fought by the devils more than anyone else in the history of Christianity or monasticism. And the reason why? Because he was a pioneer. And he was about to start something that's terrifying to the devils. People think that monasticism started earlier than this, around 150 AD, when people went off on their own. But the first official person to be a monk and to start this life and to attract so many people from around the world was Saint Anthony. If I keep on talking about this man, I will never pay him like 1% of who he is. But I beg you to read the story of Saint Anthony written by his disciple, which is Saint Athanasius, or Athanasius, or whatever you call it. Saint Athanasius is, this is the hero of faith who wrote the Nicene Creed and all of this. He's the disciple of Saint Anthony. And he wrote beautiful, 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 beautiful book. It's one of the best things you can ever read spiritually in your life. Okay? It's a must read for the servants. I think we've done that. We've read it before as servants, but a long time ago, maybe 7 years ago or something. So please get it on your own and read it. I don't want to talk about him more because, I can take the entire time talking about him. But what he started really back then is the solitude. Solitude, a monk on his own, in a cell, opens a cave in the mountain, stays there, prays by himself. Saint Anthony attracted so many people. So many people. He was one of a kind. You see him once, your life changed forever. Saint Anthony was illiterate. He can't read or write, okay? Or at least, they say at least Greek, because back then Greek was the language. If you didn't know Greek, then you're illiterate. But they knew, some people say he knew Coptic, some people say he didn't. Anyways, that's not the issue. He was an illiterate person, but he learned and he became the teacher of many. They say at his cell, they used to have like 5 translators. So people come from all over the world to hear one word of wisdom from this man and to look the face of this man. Okay? And like even the emperor himself sent him a letter, and he was like, everybody was impressed by his life, and that's how monasticism started to flourish. So around this single man who's staying by himself in the desert next to the Red Sea in Egypt, in the desert of Egypt, was around 2,000 people. The number grew. So this is the individual, the solitude, one on his own. Then later on, one of the disciples of St. Anthony is St. Macarius the Great. St. Macarius the Great, he was born in the beginning of the 4th century, 301, and he died like 390. So, and he started something new, is groups of people together, and he started to put rules for them, and he started his own monastery, which is called the Monastery of St. Macarius, which is still till now in Egypt. That was in the 4th century, and he put some rules for monasticism. So you hear about monasticism from St. Anthony, you hear about monasticism from St. Macarius, who's also Egyptian and who started, putting rules for that. And then later on came St. Pachomius. And we say St. Pachomius or St. Pachom of Koinonia. Koinonia meaning fellowship. So St. Pachomius came and said, let's do something unique. Why not live in a community? So build a fence and let monks live in a community within this walls. And that's called the monastery, something new. He started that, and he put the rules of koinonia, or fellowship, if you want to call it. So they live in love, some kind of solitude on their own. Everyone has his own cell, but within groups like this. And then Saint Shenouda, who's also came right after him, we call him Saint Shenouda the Archimenedrite. Archimenedrite means, they say like the hegumen is the archpriest for priests. The Archimenedrite is the hegumen or the leader of so many monks or fathers. So Saint Shenouda, he built also 2 monasteries in the 5th century. They call it the white monastery and the red one. And back then they had like over 2,000 and 1,800 people were close to each other. They say that nuns started even before monks. Ladies started early on. They did not start in the desert, and they never lived in the desert except St. Mary of Egypt and some few individuals. But they lived in, of course, because it's very scary and very dangerous in the desert, So they lived in communities within the cities, but, enclosed walls. And they say St. Anthony put his sister in House of Virgins, so that means they started early on. St. Pachomius wrote letters to them. It means they were organized, and even more organized than, men. No offense to anyone. But, even till now, I think when you go to the monastery and the convent, you see a huge difference how, organized and beautiful they are. Anyways. So that's the kind of monasticism that we see. Individuals on their own, started by St. Anthony, organized by St. Macarius and his actually friend St. Ammonius. And then later on, St. Pachomius and St. Shenouda. These are the pillars who put the rules. And the nuns who started even earlier than this. So monasticism was like at its peak in the 3rd, 4th, 5th century. By the 7th century, it was almost dead. Guess why? Because Islam came to Egypt around that time, and they were very, very good target, So almost disappeared, except like few individuals, and they were the seed, that stayed till the end of 19th century, when Pope Kyrillos V, not the 6th, Pope Kyrillos V, when he started to rebuild the monasteries and work on monks. And the first monastery that started was Baramos Monastery. That's why it has like early history in the 19th century. And then Pope Kyrillos, when he came also, he focused on something really wonderful, and he wanted to renew monasticism. So he started to put educated people, because usually people who went monasticism, very, very, very simple people, godly people, just wanted to worship God and dedicate themselves for God. But Pope Kyrillos started to attract some educated people. Some of them is Pope Shenouda III himself, Father Matta al-Maskin or Matthew the Poor, and some pillars of monasticism that took monasticism to a different level. So Pope Shenouda, of course, when he became a bishop and then a patriarch, he took care of monasticism, and monasticism took completely different level. So from 2-3 monasteries and having like 10 monks at the most, till now the statistics that I have is very old, 1996, when Amba Shohi Monastery had 107 monks, Suryan 109, Baramos 68, Maharra 111, Ambabula 87, San Damiana 58, and Abu Sifain 88. Huge jump from 2-3 old monks, 10 at the most, into huge number like this. And he actually put some rules for monasticism and renew some of the ranks that completely disappeared, like the scheme. I'm just going very, very shallow, because if I talk about every one of this, it's going to take forever. Now we have a lot of monasteries, not just the famous ones that you know. The last one is actually St. Mary and St. Moses that I went to in Texas, Corpus Christi, which is wonderful, and actually the monasticism is flourishing over there. The rules of monasticism, or the basics, or the pillars of monasticism, there are few things, okay, but at least there are 4 of them. Number 1, that the celibate life. Celibate life. It's and the celibate life, it's not something new. Elijah was a celibate man, and Elisha, and also St. John the Baptist. A lot of these ascetic people, they lived the life of celibacy. Jesus spoke briefly about it in Matthew 19:10-12, where he said some people are born eunuchs, or they're born not to have intimate relationship with anyone, and some people dedicate themselves for the kingdom of God, or keep themselves for the kingdom of God. So it's kind of a sacrifice that people offer to God, that you are the love of my life, you are everything to me, and you have my full dedication and love, and not an ounce to anyone else. Celibate life starts early on with people. It doesn't start when someone is adult. It's a call. It's not for everyone. Like, you don't choose to live a celibate life, okay? Usually it's a call from God, that God is calling you to do something like this, and when you're called, then you respond at the right time and the right way. St. Paul himself spoke about it, who was a celibate person, in 1 Corinthians 7, and it was very, very, very clear. He said, to get married, is a good thing, but not to get married is a better thing, okay? It's very obvious, but people somehow miss this verse completely from the Bible. Anyways, so celibate life. Number 2, solitude. Solitude is, you can't just live a celibate life and then you're hanging out with people, all day long and stuff like this. No, celibate life is like the life of Elijah, a life of prayer, a life of meditation. And that's how you know that this person is good for monasticism. If someone is more meditative than talkative, or, more into meditation, and, likes to sit and not sit by himself, not socially awkward, that's not the thing. It's the best when someone is very sociable, not very sociable, like is very good socially. Like you put him with people, 100%. You put him by himself, 110%. Okay? Because some people who are socially awkward, they think that they're good for monasticism. Believe me, they destroy the monasteries, okay? Because they're socially awkward over there too. They don't change. It's a personality dysfunction and personality disorder. They need a psychiatrist and not a monastery. So, just being very honest. Our Coptic church doesn't do psychological evaluation before people join a monastery. But other churches do psychological evaluation before someone get in. Because to tell you the truth, it's just between me and you. Someone who's, homosexual may think that monasticism is great. It will be, a disaster. So psychological evaluation I think some of the monasteries started doing that. But I'm just telling you so you don't say that monasticism is for this person or that person or for me. So, So celibate life and solitude. The third is a chosen poverty. Chosen poverty. Sell everything, content with what I have, very, very, very little. They're not allowed to own anything. Number 4 is obedience. It's like a military. Whatever you're ordered. And you remember the tree of obedience, and all this. So, how monasticism is a good thing for the church and for the community. Like when the good people leave and they become useless, in a deserted place. That's not the case, actually. Because monasticism influenced the church spiritually, and literature-wise, big time. And I'll tell you what they are. Number 1 is spiritually. They were the candle that it's lit for prayer at all times. Praying for the church, praying for the whole world. And the church always supposed to be supported by prayers. So they were the candle that's lit for the church 24/7, praying for the church, because the church is not just ministry, but also prayer. From dogmatic and theological and protecting the faith, as you know, St. Athanasius was fighting Arius, and he was very strong. He's against the world, but guess who was supporting him? St. Anthony himself is like the biggest man in the history of the world. And by the way, I'm not saying that because the people who had vision of heaven, they saw all the saints in a category, and St. Anthony is completely different category. So I'm like someone's shining like the sun. He's something else. This man is different. So the strength of St. Athanasius came from St. Anthony, the man of the cave, the man of prayer, the man of pillar of fire with God that was supporting, St. Athanasius. So they were supporting the church against all these heresies, maybe next time we're going to talk about these heresies. So spiritual, dogmatic, and theological. Number 3, actually, the heritage of monasticism that we received, which is the writing of the fathers, the desert fathers. It's one of the most beautiful, enlightening thing you can ever read is the writing of the desert fathers. Anyone heard about Henry Nouwen? Henry Nouwen, raise your hand if you heard this name. Oh my goodness, that's not good. Okay, Henry Nouwen is is a philosopher. He's actually a Catholic priest, but he's a psychologist, and he's a philosopher, and he's like one of the big writers of the 20th century. This man wrote a beautiful, beautiful, beautiful book, very, very small book that anyone can get and read in maybe half an hour. It's called With Open Heart. And he talks about the Coptic, he doesn't call them the Coptic, he talks about the Egyptian monks, starting with Saint Anthony, Saint Macarius, and all these people. And he wrote beautiful things, that every one of us, this man is European, and, I don't think he ever visited Egypt, but he wrote beautiful, beautiful things about these people and their writings. So they left us gems that, I suggested you 2 books so far. Okay? Life of Saint Anthony by Saint Athanasius. Don't get just any book of Life of Saint Anthony, written by Saint Athanasius. The second book was Open Heart for Henry Nouwen. The third is the letters of Saint Anthony. He has few letters, maybe 21 letters. But you could safely put this next to the Bible. Left wonderful, wonderful things. Another book, I don't know if it's available in English or not, but the Sermons of Saint Macarius. Wonderful. You feel like these people looked at the Bible in a different way. Extremely simple, but extremely deep at the same time. So these people took care of the church in many ways, supported the church with their prayers, because a lot of people say, it's a wasted effort. The best example I can give to monasticism is exactly like the alabaster flask that Mary poured, on Jesus. Like, why this waste? Why take someone full of energy, full of the love of God, and full of talents, and put him in the desert? Can this be a great leader in the church? Well, that's the broken oil on the body of Jesus. I'm just for your pleasure. But this is waste. It's a beautiful waste. Beautiful waste. That's just a simple way to put that, the monastic life. And more importantly, the leaders of the church, the bishops and the patriarchs are chosen from, monks. That's why I'm very sad that our church didn't produce one monk. So, no popes are going to come from this church. I'm disappointed by that, because it will be very cool, We'll be very special church. You have to work on that from now. So, of course, after 1,000 years, God give long life to His Holiness. But we have to, like the leaders of the church still come from this category. Monasticism have influenced the Coptic church big time. Our church is an ascetic church. The focus of our church is asceticism, right? Right word? Asceticism? Okay. Asceticism is the spirit of our church. How? Fastings. No church fasts more than our fastings. Even how the church still survived till now with its origin and its spirituality and everything, can't say that this is because of the church. Of course, martyrdom did a big thing with that. But the spirituality of the church goes back to this monastic life. Some people actually criticize that they say, you guys are too ascetic in your church. We love it, or at least most of us, It's a good thing, and it definitely influenced church in a wonderful way. There is a book called The Paradise of monks. So most of the writings and the lives of the fathers are there. Jean Cassian also wrote a lot about the monasticism in the Coptic Church. And a lot of people that were not Egyptian were influenced by the Coptic Church, like St. Basil the Great, St. Gregory of Nyssa, St. John Chrysostom. All these people were discipled and influenced by monks in of the Coptic Church. So that's monasticism in a nutshell. And of course you can read more or get the best resource is actually the life of these people, and their life is very, very, very simple, just few lines and their sayings and some stories about them. It's beautiful. If you've never read that, I really encourage you to also read these things. It's going to give you the taste of the origin of the church, beautiful, beautiful taste of a spirituality that you will never find anywhere else, I promise you. Whatever you're going to read in the letters of St. Anthony, you're never going to read it anywhere else, period. That's why I said you can safely put this next to the Bible. The sayings and the lives and the examples that it's written there, just priceless. Can never find this anywhere else. Okay? So that's a great heritage are left for us, and we're yet to know and get the blessing of these. That's what I have for you, monasticism in a nutshell. Guys in the sound room, can you close the streaming? And just give me the okay when you close the streaming. Because I want to announce something.